want to welcome panel 5. Do we have all speakers of panel 5?
I'm certainly here. Welcome. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, it's almost evening in Taiwan.
Hi, Harris.
Hi, how are you, Vincent?
All good. Thanks.
Good.
So this panel is usually one of the popular ones because even if people don't want to dive in taxation, all of them can, fall victim to some crime in the cryptosphere. So I'm just going to pass the floor to Shubomi, who is going to introduce the speakers.
Hello, can you see me, hear me
Hi.
clearly?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So we're waiting for, I think, 2 other speakers, but I will just proceed with the introductions before they join, and hopefully they can get in quickly. Hi, everybody. My name is Olashubomi Odunton. I'm introducing myself for those who were not present yesterday. I am the brand marketing manager at O2K, and it's a real honor to be here to introduce the 5th panel with speakers who will be discussing anti-money laundering and crime prevention. First on the panel, we have Alexandre Senra, a Brazilian federal prosecutor. He is the coordinator of the crypto working group at the Federal Public Ministry. Alex is certified in blockchain by MIT, as well as in DeFi, NFTs, and the metaverse by UNIC. He is a TRM Lab certified crypto investigator. Our second speaker is Harish Chen, who is already here. He is a seasoned prosecutor at the Chiayi District Prosecutor's Office in Taiwan. He brings a wealth of experience to the legal field. He has a strong foundation in constitutional, international, and privacy law, and with this, he has excelled in prosecution and has been instrumental in shaping the judiciary system. He's also a fellow at the prestigious Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University. We have Vincent Danjean, the head of the Cyberspace and New Technologies Laboratory at INTERPOL Innovation Center. He has been an international civil servant since 2003, and until 2018, he served as Interpol's Information Security Manager. In 2009, he played a pivotal role in establishing and managing the Interpol Computer Emergency Response Team. Since 2018, Vincent changed his career path to take more of a proactive role in operational police work as the head of the Cyberspace and New Technologies Laboratory within the Interpol Innovation Center. The primary focus of his team is to accompany member countries in innovating and in testing the applied use of emerging technologies. His career history predominantly revolves around management positions and consultancy in security as well as in technology. And to moderate this interesting panel, finally, we have Hugo Volz Oliveira. Hugo is a founding member and secretary at New Economy Institute, an advocacy group focused on making Portugal and Europe more crypto-friendly. He has been deeply involved in the negotiations with the Portuguese government for the new taxation regime implemented in 2023, having prepared policy proposals and training materials for senior public staff on these and other national projects. Has been an absolute honor, and I will be passing the mic to our moderator, Hugo.
Thank you very much, Shubomi. Can everyone hear me well? Fellow speakers, Shubomi, Antonia?
Yes,
Yes.
Hugo.
Yes.
Perfect. So it's a pleasure being here with you. And just as a little bit of context before we kick it off with our first speakers, just wanted to highlight how important this topic is, and especially how it is increasingly difficult for the law enforcement agencies and for some of our speakers here today to also fight back the increasing sophistication of all these money laundering threats and all these crimes. But at the same time, as the industry keeps evolving, there are new tools that are used. There's a transparency of the blockchain, and these overall gives a strong, a really strong push to these same law enforcement agencies that have these high numbers of threats to deal with, to also be able to fight them back more efficiently and more effectively. At least that's what we hope. So the goal of this conversation is exactly to understand if that's the case, what do our speakers feel regarding crime that is powered by the blockchain or that uses crypto assets for the purpose of attempting to launder funds, and how does that contrast with the normal internet world, with cyber fraud at large, and with overall crime that is powered by fiat and enabled by good old cash. And so to kick off this conversation, we'll start with Vincent, and then we'll jump on to Aris. And as Shubhami was just telling us, you have this long career at Interpol, and I'm positive that you have experienced a great deal of crypto crimes. And I wanted to know a little bit more about some interesting stories and examples about these sophisticated crimes that people often overlook. And here I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit about AI. Everyone knows AI is being a lot used by criminals these days. There's that famous example in Hong Kong of that CFO who wired some dozens of millions in to supposedly on orders of the CFO, and he was just a mere accountant. And then it was a deep fake. But I'm also interested in the other end of the spectrum, as in what are those traditional phishing exploits that perhaps deal more with what North Korea is an expert on, which is social engineering, and it's not so much about technology, but about understanding how the human mind works, and they are even sometimes more impactful than the ones that use technology. And what's your overall comments for our audience in terms of the tips that they can have to be more aware of these and to be able to escape these threats of the criminals?
Okay, sure. Well, thank you, Hugo. I'm very honored to be here on this panel with renowned experts and prosecutors. That's great, and I'm sure we're going to have a nice discussion. Yeah, effectively, we've seen a number of crimes. The AI has been reshuffling the game. Of course, criminals are making great use of it. We are starting to make great use of AI as well, although it is not as easy for us to use because the prosecution is not yet there to understand how AI functions, and there is still this black box aspects. We do need to replicate the way we investigated things before we go to court, and AI is not very good at this. So there is still a lot of way to go for us to fully use the potential of AI in our investigations, but it is coming there. And you asked me about my experience with the different types of crimes we are seeing and what they are doing with cryptocurrencies, and sometimes including the use of AI to enhance their crimes. And I will use some very specific examples just to illustrate the different ways that cryptocurrencies and tokens and blockchains are being used today or have been used in the past, just because some examples have not been fully utilized by the criminals yet. And we have seen them making some attempts. And here I'm thinking specifically of the use of NFTs for terrorist purposes, where a couple of years back we had someone publish an NFT in which there was some jihad messages calling people for jihad and explaining that this was an honorable cause. We think this was just an attempt to make this message carved in stone because, as you know, blockchain is immutable. So if you write an NFT somewhere, it's there to stay. Fortunately, the market on which the NFT was posted immediately reacted and removed it. So it's not so visible online, but it's still there somewhere. There is this NFT with just plain text as a normal art NFT image, which is carved on the blockchain and says, well, we should all go to jihad because bad people, whatever. So there is this attempt. We don't really know whether this was to actually sell the NFT and make funds for the jihadi cause. That's not clear. The NFT is still there, hasn't been sold, so probably not. But just to illustrate different ways we are seeing. Something that worried us a couple of months back was the appearance of cryptocurrencies and tokens being integrated into encrypted networks. As you know, we have plenty of encrypted networks. Depending on the region, depending on the language, they have their own specifics. We see the most common one as Telegram, probably, around the world. And we see a shift from darknet into Telegram channels, where vendors can happily sell their products. And the integration of the blockchain and tokens inside those encrypted networks is causing us an issue. With the Tron token, for instance, integrated in Telegram network, we see the criminals are blooming and using this service. In a way, we will see that more and more because Web 3.0 is all about integrating those technology blocks. So we will see encrypted networks being proposed as a technology block that anyone can use. We will see tokens being integrated in that. We will see selling platforms integrated. So we as law enforcement have to understand and adapt to this. Of course, you mentioned AI. AI combined with phishing scams. We see that a lot. And it's moving from the CEO fraud towards the public. Maybe you see that in Taiwan, Harris, but in Singapore, for instance, they're having a lot of scams. They have a very good scam center, by the way, in the Singaporean police forces in Singapore. Fantastic job there. And they are seeing a lot of scams touching universities. People posing as conference organizers in the university and calling for services. Reserving a big restaurant, for instance, and never showing up. So this is not crime as such, but it is disrupting society. And we see that coming to the easy way of doing it. So it's not really criminal. It's just adapting the technology and making it available to all people for doing wrong stuff. KYC material, that's probably a big concern in the room here for most of the banks and service providers around. You have your KYC processes and you're happy about a video of someone holding a paper saying, yes, this is me. But unfortunately, AI is readily available to bypass this and create your own KYC with anyone's face. I mean, you could create my face and do that and pretend I'm Vincent Danjean on Coinbase when I'm absolutely not. And that's going to create major issues. We do start a lot of work in the Innovation Center in INTERPOL, working with deepfakes, trying to understand what's going on, trying to work with the solution providers like NVIDIA, Google, Facebook, and others to establish a standard to really specify this image, this video is real, it's not been tampered with. And another scam or way of criminality that we have seen recently, and that's scams around the vanilla addresses of cryptocurrencies. You know that most of us don't have a great memory sufficient to remember a whole address, a Bitcoin address, and we usually go by the first 5 or 6 digits to believe that we are on the right wallet to send our funds. So criminals cleverly created wallets using the vanilla technology to randomly created public addresses that correspond to these 5, 6 first characters, and now pretend to be PayPal or others and receive the funds that you are supposed to send to PayPal. That's basically, in a nutshell, rapidly what we are seeing as the current trends and worrying things that we have on our plate. But I don't want to take the time from the other people. Prosecutors see a lot more than what we do. We are the technical underlying layer for the law enforcement in the INTERPOL member countries. We have other departments in the house, in the General Secretariat, who deal with the actual crime and operational work. So we have namely the Cybercrime Directorate, and the Financial Crime and Anti-Corruption Unit Directorate, who directly have the mandate to work with member countries on cases related to cryptocurrencies. Sorry for being a bit long on this one.
Not at all, Vincent. That was very informative. Just before we move to Aries, quick follow-up question. That particular example you mentioned about fraud groups like Booking, restaurants on behalf of universities and then not showing up and then disrupting society because of that. Do they use crypto or blockchain in it, or it's mostly about cyber fraud?
This is mostly cyber fraud and use of AI to replicate the voice or even the face of someone. Yeah,
I understand. Yeah, clear.
And chatbots.
And yeah, and that can have an impact in the industry too. Very well. So on to you, Aris. And given that you are a major cyber fraud specialist, this is a very good transition. And being specifically the cybercrime prosecutor in Taiwan, I'm also sure that you have been heavily involved in many interesting experiences, both with crypto and without crypto. And that's how I want to start, is to understand the differences related to the recovery of illegally obtained crypto assets. How is that the seizing of crypto assets different from the seizing of fiat, be it in a bank or be it in cash, of course? And what recommendations do you have for some other prosecutors that we have here on the panel, perhaps, and also some in the audience, and some will surely watch this video later on? And after that, not only what other recommendations do you have for fellow professionals, but also for other countries, given that you are heavily involved in Taiwan in the lawmaking process to improve cyber fraud and cybercrime legislation?
Okay, thank you, Hugo. And it's my great privilege to be in this panel. And also thank you for Alexandre and Vincent for participating with us. And also the Antonia and other staff organizing for this great event. I'm really appreciate for what they have done. And for Hugo's question, perhaps I have a slide to share. Can I go back to your question after my slide? It's just very simple, and I will give you an overview of what we are facing in Taiwan, and we are going what to do to improve the situation where we are faced now. Okay, I will share my slide. Just a moment. Do you see my slide?
Yes, now we're seeing it.
All right, great. So I'm using the template given by the organizer. And so my topic will be the new era of anti-money laundering in Taiwan, which we will have more intensive crypto regulation and governance in terms of anti-money laundering. Okay, and this is my bio. I think the organizer and the moderator has done some introduction, so I will just skip that. What I'm doing now, other than my usual caseload, is I will be participating as a project prosecutor to assist High Prosecutor's Office in Taiwan to facilitate other districts in terms of cyber fraud, prevention, or some mechanism or approaches that we would like to introduce into other districts as a nationwide approaches. Okay, so how serious is crypto involved in criminality in Taiwan? First of all, I would like to show you that this is really, really serious and really bad, because this is a new case which just happened in January 26, 2024, and that type B lawyer detained over alleged crypto fraud. And this is a case that a very notable lawyer, which actually myself is acquainted with, and he's also I think a big lawyer in a big law firm, but at the same time, simultaneously, he set up a cryptocurrency exchanges with other conspiracies to mainly helping money laundering with crypto, mostly from the illicit gains process from cyber fraud. So this guy or this lawyer has been indicted, and I think the trial is on session. So we will see what will happen to this lawyer. He has committed everything, and we have confiscated or forfeited, I think, over 1 million or 1.2 million US dollars in his office and also in his apartment. So, and there is another case which is more serious, is that a judge is also into it. And this judge has been indicted yesterday that the money found in judge's office linked to fraud ring. And this fraud ring is also involved with cryptocurrency. And we're very sorry to see that a young judge, I think is approximately 30 years old, and he has been hiding money for other conspirators and putting the money, I think is about 100,000 US dollars in his office to conceal and to help money launder on those illegal processes. So this is not just crypto. This is more than a lot of people are getting involved, which you would say unprecedentedly, that we're seeing, of course, police officers, and we're seeing lawyers, quite a few lawyers involved, and also we're seeing judges and some clerks. Today, I just learned from the news that in another big court, there are clerks involved in cryptocurrency cyber fraud, and also clerks in banks that will help those criminals to open, especially for money mule. Okay, so how serious is crypto involved in criminality? It's getting more serious. Crypto-related illegal gain in 2023 amounted to to 7 million US dollars Taiwan, according to police stats. But I think this number is underrated or underestimated, because a lot of people did not report or not even know how to report that. And USDT is the #1 choice of criminals. And I think that's very common in other countries. And also individual OTC, over the counter, is the primary disguise for money laundering activities. And actually this morning, I just had a case, I interrogated a criminal, a defendant that is being involved in a lot of cases with the disguise of individual OTC, that he claims that he is only buying USDT and sell that in a very, very quick manner. And so actually he is helping to launder money, but we can see there is records for his transaction of cryptocurrency USDTs, and also his records accounts in cryptocurrency exchanges. So they have created quite a few very, I would say, perfect disguises to defend them, or to even to deceive the law enforcement or even judges. And often they are combined with account mules. And account mules is also a very serious problem in Taiwan. We see every case about fraud is about account mule, that people are providing their accounts, either being deceptive or voluntarily to provide those accounts for criminals. And almost 80% of my fraud cases related to crypto. And it's true that everything is about, when people want to launder money, they will ask different victims to buy crypto, or to ask somebody to help them to create accounts in exchanges and to launder the process through cryptos. And next, how are we improving? So this is the news from the block. This is pretty new. It's in July that Taiwan passes new AML legislation to imprison illegal operators for up to 2 years. So what that means, that in our anti-money laundering control law that we have amended, and we have passed a new statute to regulate or to punish those people, those exchanges that do not have a legal license. So I will just briefly introduce to you that how these statutes works. In Money Laundering Control Act, increasing oversight on virtual assets and enhancing penalties for non-compliance to align with global standards. So businesses or individuals providing crypto services operating in Taiwan must complete AML procedures and register the service capacity according to the new rules. And when the new rules take effect, it has been taking effect last month in August, businesses or individuals providing crypto services operating in Taiwan must complete AML process and register their service capacity. Failure to do so may result in imprisonment for up to 2 years or a fine of up to NT 5 million. So according to the newly passed rules, overseas crypto platforms will need to set up local entities and apply for AML registration, or they may face criminal penalties. For example, Coinbase or other major cryptocurrency exchanges, they are not Taiwan local companies. They have to, according to these rules, they have to set up local entities and apply for our AML registration. Okay, and meanwhile, the FC, which is a committee overseeing our financial situation, financial rules, is mulling a special law proposal for crypto assets that is, it plans to submit to the Executive Yuan, Taiwan's highest administrative organ, in June 2025. FSC chair said that at the parliament last week. So we will move forward from our financial overseeing or financial regulation, financial governance point of view to further regulate cryptocurrency in this regard. And last month, the local crypto sector officially established an industry association to formulate self-supervisory rules under the government's guidelines. And we're happy to see that the industry is moving forward. So in my conclusion is that regulation and governance do matter, because no regulation, there is no documentation. No governance, there is no deterrence. So whenever there are records, there will be success. I think in this panel, well, in law enforcement, I think Vincent and also Hugo and Alexandre, you know that how these documented records is important for us, because when we want to charge someone, we need evidence, and evidence comes from those data, comes from those numbers, comes from those records that kept from other sectors, mostly from administrative part. And more autonomous and detailed compliance where we should be anticipated in the future. So how to disrupt money laundering criminality is the key issue. And that's what I have been working in these years, that I'm promoting website blocking or domain name seizure, which is conducted in the United States. And in Taiwan, we use DNS-RPZ, which is also a way to stop the online, the website resolution to get into the border of Taiwan. And we have shut down quite a few illegal websites by DNS-RPZ. And also in the future, we're looking forward to using this way perhaps to those illegal cryptocurrency exchanges, especially they are targeting money laundering. And so crypto should not be a money laundering haven. I think that's a universal concept nowadays. We are working on that. So we have this session, we have this conference. So due taxation, and lastly, due taxation of assets, including crypto, is the cornerstone of anti-money laundering. Because with taxation, we can have records of those assets, and we can trace how these assets come from. So that means we can trace criminality, we can trace criminals online or offline through taxation related sectors or other documented records. So lastly, it's the above is my presentation, and thank you very much. So next, I will go to Hugo's questions about the fulfilling or to recovering the crypto assets I think that's the number one priority, but also the number one difficulty we're now faced with in Taiwan. And I'm very sorry that Vincent, we're not a member of still sharing on the screen. Okay. Sure. Thank you. I think I'm not sharing, right? All right. Okay. So we're not yet a member of Interpol, and we're not even an observer of Interpol, and we'll know the reason why. And so in Taiwan, because it's a very, very different situation, we are very diplomatically retarded, I would say that, because of China. So we don't have a lot of organizations for us to share or to get information from other jurisdictions. So that will also make us harder to trace or to even to locate the cryptocurrency in terms of illicit process. So in terms of recovering, I would say in Taiwan, domestically, police officers and also FBI, I mean Taiwan's FBI agents and prosecutors were now very capable of tracing those, tracing those crypto assets, and we've been in a lot of training, and also we're able to use TRM and also Chainalysis and other software. But what we're lacking is that we don't have very strong ties with other jurisdictions. For example, just USA, it might be we will see a lot of cryptocurrency might finally go to Coinbase or some exchanges in other countries, but we just cannot get them very quickly, and we do not have a lot of countries we do not have mutual legal assistance treaties or agreements. So that's a problem for Taiwan. And from our point of view, we're also very happy to assist other countries. So whenever your country has any problems with cryptocurrency, perhaps located in Taiwan, just let me know, or to other agencies of Taiwanese law enforcement. We're very happy to assist. And so I'm so looking for that Taiwan could be in a treaty like perhaps the UN just passed the new convention of cybercrime, and also we could be in other networks which can enable us to trace and to locate or disrupt or to seize the cryptocurrency very fast. And that's my hope. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well, Aris. Very interesting remarks. We'll get back to them later on. And yeah, this is the right forum for them. So Alexandre, your experience is also very similar to that of Aris, also as a prosecutor. But in this case, you are from Brazil, and Brazil is part of Interpol. And not only is part of Interpol, but now the president of Interpol is Brazilian, Urquiza. If I believe he has already been elected, right? Yeah. And so that will be an interesting contrast to hear from to our audience. So what are the differences from what Aris just shared with us? And what are some of the most interesting stories from your work as a prosecutor in cyber fraud, and specifically with crypto, that you can share with us regarding your top cases?
Okay, I will bring you 3 cases. We have a bunch of them, but I think there are 3 cases where we can learn something from them. And for that, I will share a quickly presentation, but please interrupt me if it is necessary. Here is it. Okay. For people, if you want to download this presentation, you can do it through this QR code. Okay. Very briefly talking about me, this is what people usually want to know when I talk about myself. But the most important thing is not my qualifications, but is the fact that I've bought Bitcoin for the first time here. exactly in 2017, 2018, when the Bitcoin was hitting $20,000. And after that, of course, I lose money during this period. And in 2019, started to appear in Brazil a huge Ponzi schemes that were taking money from people talking about cryptocurrencies, something that at that time was very unknown or not well understood. And after that, the time was going on, and in 2020, I've dealt with the first case where the Brazilian state has lost the custody of 5.15 bitcoins. Talking very shortly about it, what happened? The law enforcement person that was dealing with this case downloaded a paper wallet, and then he was scammed because the paper wallet was downloaded from a scam website. Here is the transaction. It can be traced through blockchain because despite its pseudonymity, it is transparency. So we can trace until today what is happening and what are the transfers involving these 5.15 bitcoins. Oh yes, and the images in this presentation, you can click on them and you see the fonts and the blockchain explorer. The second case is about the first sale of bitcoins by the Brazilian Federal Justice, which we have sold almost 30 bitcoins, and we have learned something interesting stuff about it. The main stuff is that selling bitcoin through exchanges is more profitable than selling them through auction. Auction is the most like orthodox way to sell bitcoins, but when we are dealing with an asset that have a very great liquidity, we can do it through exchange platforms. And the third case, look at our evolution. In 2021, we could trace more than 4,000 bitcoins, the failed attempt to hide more than 4,000 bitcoins. And what we can learn from this case, it is about the publicity of the blockchain. The transactions are immutable and it can be seen. So even with the pseudonymity, we could trace them and track them until centralized exchange. So we could make the seizure after that and recover a great amount of this money. Hugo, do you want to have the speech back, or can I just finish talking very shortly about cross-border cooperation and blockchain analytic platforms?
Of course, please proceed. Yeah, please proceed.
Okay. I have a case also of cross-border cooperation, one of the first ones that we have received in Brazil, and what we can learn from it is the importance of being understood. We really do not know what will happen in the other state. Is this cooperation will be received for someone with a well understood about this technology or not? So it is very important to draw it and to tell exactly what are the sequence of the diligence that we want to be executed in the other jurisdictions. And to end, and in the final, I would like to talk very shortly about the relevance of educating law enforcement on crypto. I've bring the first case about the loss of 5.15 bitcoins to show you how it is important not only know what we have to do, but even what we can't do. What are the risks that we taking and the risks we are dealing of when we deal with this technology. And with that in mind, the first product of the working group that I coordinate is a guideline about the money pursuit involving crypto assets. This guideline is clickable and is also available in Spanish version and in English version. And on the right side, is a form of support that can be filled by other federal prosecutors, and then the working group that I coordinate can help them to deal with the technical aspects. Vincent have pointed that the technological aspects is important. They are the most important thing when we talk about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, because as professional laws, we are very used to we have a lot of experience in dealing with laws, but we have very often lack of knowledge in technical aspects that are crucial in this kind of investigation. And here is where you can find me, the QR code for my Instagram and LinkedIn. I give you back the speech, Hugo, and stay here for the other questions and dialogue with Harris and with Vincent. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Alexandre. That was very interesting. So then a question for the panel based on the comments that I was hearing. You all use leading blockchain analytic platforms in your work. Aries was talking about TRM. Maybe Alexandre used chain analysis. Maybe someone uses elliptic. There are many of these, and they are quite sophisticated, and they have been working with law enforcement agencies around the world since the beginning. But is the use of this software enough for an effective transaction monitoring and crime prevention? What are the key success factors to use this software in the best way possible? And what's missing from this software or from your work in terms of what would you like to see developed to be more effective in capturing these criminals?
Okay. Maybe I'll start on this one. We've done great efforts. Since 2018, I believe, we are involved in European projects, developing solutions, open source based, and cheaper than the market solutions to enable most of our member countries to investigate those graphs and transactions. So I think what was missing at the time was really this graphical aspect, and for the investigator to understand from the graph what is a real positive or what is a false positive, the attribution, the clustering, all of those issues had to be addressed in a way. So we are getting there. We're getting better on understanding and training our law enforcement to make sure that they are on the same clustering methodologies and understanding. All those tools don't have the same way of working, and that is creating problems and false attributions. That's one problem we still have. The second problem we still need to solve is the accessibility of the intelligence that law enforcement is sitting on inside those solutions that are commercial, private solutions in a way. Those commercial solutions give you a lot of attribution tags. They give you ideas on who this address could belong to or cluster could belong to, but it doesn't relate to your actual knowledge within your country from a law enforcement perspective. I'm investigating a criminal organized group, and I might have a number of wallets which I know are associated, but I cannot share that in my commercial solution. So we still need that integration of the actual data sets that we are sitting on as law enforcement. And that's a big project that we are launching for next year in Interpol to enable this exchange, so the integration with the commercial solutions, but also the exchange between the countries, so that our Interpol member countries can check if somebody else in the law enforcement in the world is also investigating the same wallet, for instance. And finally, again, artificial intelligence is changing a lot of things in there. Artificial intelligence enables us to identify the patterns and therefore the type of crimes that we are facing. Someone who's selling stuff on encrypted channels on darknet will have transactions which will have a specific pattern. Someone who's involved in money laundering will have another pattern. And artificial intelligence is really good at enabling us to match those patterns with the transactions we have in the blockchains.
Okay.
Yeah, please proceed, Aris. And on top of this, I'll add a small question to you. You mentioned that USDT is the weapon of choice for criminals. And in regard to this question of the software and of what you would like to see your effectivity enhanced to prevent more crime, my comment was mostly about how engaged it has been the Tether Corporation in assisting you also in capturing and seizing or freezing these Tether owned by criminals.
All right. I will continue or echo with Vincent that I think Hugo raised a very good question. From my point of view, especially from these years, we have more intensive investigation in terms of cryptocurrency using those software to assist us. And we're seeing now that there is just a spectrum in our law enforcement or in regard to courts, that the judges, the court, they are the most they are the ones that are so not so capable. In the middle will be prosecutors, and the cops will be better, and criminals is the best. Okay, so I think we'll understand that, and that's an interesting scenario that we're facing now. Is that we are always catching up with criminals, and also sometimes we have to rely on these perhaps reports using chain analysis to convince the court, the judges, to render a conviction. So we have been seeing that only solely depending on these cryptocurrency reports is not enough. Okay, so it's online evidence is important, but sometimes I would say that offline is more important. There is a lot of I would say evidences that need to be secured or to be presented in the court in terms other than those cryptocurrency reports, because it's could elaborate or explains how this money goes in and goes out. But if you want to actually to convict somebody, you need something more, perhaps the evidence or the witness statement and other, especially from a point of view, if in my district, if I can locate those criminals, I will always ask or encourage police officers or agents to follow or to monitor in person how they are doing actually. And it is sometimes, or I would say oftentimes, give me a very good picture how they're related with each other. Because what we're doing now from what we're learning from those cryptocurrency reports is that we want to see the connection between the conspirators or all those defendants we are accusing. So in the court, I would say the offline evidence is still very important. Those old school evidence is still very important. But from other point of view, that we still need to educate the judges to elaborate or how to understand these transactions are being treated, and how these transactions can mean in money laundering process. So that's what I'm seeing now. And of course, what I am hoping is that perhaps we can have a universal or a very common platform for us to seize or to get those information from different cryptocurrency exchanges or from even other countries in terms of a lot of, like USDT or Bitcoin or something else to assist us very quickly. Otherwise, we're actually chasing those criminals. First, we have to, to ask the LE contact in different exchanges, and if they give us information, we can comply with we can combine with the report we have. But sometimes it's pretty late for us. Okay, so my conclusion is that offline is still very important. Online is important, and educating judges to understand those reports is important too. That will bring us a very solid case in terms to have a virtual conviction over those criminals. Thank you.
Alexandre, if you can build on this and also tell us a little bit more about this educational aspect that you also highlighted in your talk. I believe that will be quite useful, because education in crypto is a quite delicate matter, especially around this particular topic, and takes a lot of time to bear fruit. And I'm sure there have been many key challenges that you have faced in your work regarding this. Not only with the software, but also with the software of the mind.
Exactly. I completely agree with Harris. And witness and other kind of offline evidences, they are still necessary because judges and law enforcement in general are more used to deal with them. The technology aspects, every time they are a challenge, because it is not enough for us to understand. We have to be capable of explaining it shortly, in a simple manner, in an understood manner. So that's why the reports are not enough, even when they are enough in the technological aspect. Because to convince someone, they need to be conducted to more familiar places. And the whole of education is fundamental in this aspect. Tools of blockchain analytics like chain reactor from Chainalysis, elliptic, and the tool from TRM, they are very important. But I think even more important than that is to understand, even for the law enforcement, what is happening. I know investigators that with only block explorers can do more than I can do with tools like Reactor from Chainalysis. And I also know there are people, even in law enforcement, and even that work with cyber criminality, that will not be able to do anything, even having all of these expensive tools at their disposal. That's why it's so important, the education for me.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's a very good message, Alexandre. Before we move to some questions from the audience, I just wanted to have one final question for you, and I'll just like 30 seconds to 1 minute answer. And because you are all agreeing on most of what we discussed in this panel, and that makes sense because you all share more or less the same profession. Vincent is different, of course, but you collaborate with a lot of prosecutors for sure. But because you are all agreeing with these, I just wanted to see if there was any dissent among the ranks here in our panel. And the question is mostly about how do you see the next years in this industry's approach to money laundering and to crime? What's the evolution that you expect, both from the criminals, both from the projects, both from the regulators and the law enforcement agencies? And I just wanted to understand the diverse perspectives regarding your understanding of the future year. And as an example, if you believe crime will be more sophisticated, if you believe law enforcement is winning the race, and criminals are now afraid of using crypto because they will be more easily caught because of the records and whatnot. That's the kind of concluding remarks that I'm trying to fish from you before we go into the questions from the audience. So we can start with Vincent, perhaps, following the traditional order.
Okay, thanks. That's a difficult one. Future, I think, is already there. We are overwhelmed as law enforcement with the number of crimes and the ways the criminals are abusing the cryptocurrencies. We might see something similar to what we saw in the IP crime domains, the intellectual property crime domains, with a lot of public-private litigations, as opposed to law enforcement having to investigate. This becomes private litigation. Yeah, I'm certainly seeing something going that way. As Interpol, we only focus on organized crime and high targets. So I'm not sure how much the public is currently going to private litigation as opposed to still going through the normal chain of going to law enforcement to report a crime on cryptocurrencies. But I see this changing a little bit because cryptocurrencies will become the same as normal money, same as normal business, so private litigation. I see a lot of decentralized finances. We touched a little bit on stablecoins. in the panel before us. Obviously, that's a big tendency, but more generally, all smart tokens, smart contracts. Sorry. So law enforcement is still struggling with the understanding of what smart contracts are and how they work and how to investigate on them. So that's one of the things we need to catch up rapidly with Web 3.0 and the DeFi protocols being readily available. I see more use of that. I see more crimes in this. We do see a lot of investment scams based on tokens already. So yeah, that's one trend we can expect. And in terms of what was said in education before, of course, I totally agree. Interpol is doing a lot in education law enforcement, but not only. We do also some education for judges and prosecutors. Unfortunately, all the material we have is law enforcement restricted. We publish guidelines. We do a lot in harmonizing all of those procedures around the world to make sure that everyone is seizing and handling the seized cryptocurrencies the same way. Digital assets, I should say, because not just cryptocurrencies.
Very interesting trends. Thank you. Aris, what about you? The future is indeed now, but what is happening now?
Well, I have several points, and number one, from my personal, I would say very, very personal, private point of view, I would really like to have internet to be broken for only one day. Because one day, if we are not using Telegram, we're not using Line, we're not using Facebook, the cases will be down very quickly, dramatically. I can guarantee that. But it's just going to happen. So what I mentioned before in this panel is, first of all, how to indict and how to convict those guys. But I would say, in fact, not in an optimistic way, that I would say to locate these guys, locate these criminals, and bring them into justice and have them convicted in the court will be a tougher task for us in the future. I would say there will be cases without any defendants, very much in the future, because we could have victims, we could have process that is flowing that we can see from cryptocurrency exchanges to other wallets, but we just can't figure out who is the real guy handling this and who is the real guy behind all this syndicate. So what I'm thinking is that in this crypto world, or in the future, that cryptocurrency it will be a very, very used a media used other than fiat to transaction or for our economy. I would say that we should be focusing more on mitigating or disrupting the illegal activities online, illegal activities with this cryptocurrency. So what I'm thinking is that just like we're talking now, regulation and governance ahead before will be very, very important. And also, if there, I can imagine, other than Tether or USDT, perhaps in a couple of years, there will be new things, better ways for us to launder money. So the first of all is, how could we document that? How could we record those activities online in a very, very early manner? That's, I think, very important for us. I think every country is working on that. And a couple of years ago, I think SEC in the United States, they're talking about which one is commodity, which one is security in terms of these cryptocurrencies. And so governments should be there, I would say. It's not a Wild West, which will be described by those crypto lovers, users. It's very serious, because you are talking about money that from an old man in a country that without any knowledge toward cryptocurrency, but you can scam them just by a cell phone within minutes, with a few minutes. So in terms of we're talking anti-money laundering. This is a very serious problem where we need to be to address in advance, that in the future perhaps there is like a fintech or tech things coming out, how to deal with that. And I think the administration or the government's attitude will be the key issue in terms to disrupt or to prevent those crimes in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Aris. I too would like for the internet to be down so that I could have some nice days of holidays fully offline. I can only do that if I'm in the middle of the ocean. But these days with all the storms in the Mediterranean is becoming quite dangerous. So Alexandre, what about you?
Okay, I think we already reached the point of no return. So for the future, what I expect is the exponentially growing of this environment. And what I hope for the future is that people become more educated in the subject and less vulnerable. Vincent talked right now about smart contracts, and Harris talked about USDT. Even today, people widely think that when they use a hardware wallet, they can sign every kind of transactions, and then they lose the funds. Even today, people, it is not very clearly for them the difference between cryptocurrencies and tokens. So they really don't know that USDT and other stable coins can be freezed. So that's my wish for the future. Thank you again.
That's a very good wish, Alexandre. Thank you for that. And it's 1:15 in the Netherlands. This was the perfect timing. Our panel has come to an end, but we still have 10 minutes to answer some questions from the audience. So we'll start with that. And question number one is geared towards Vincent first, but also to Alexandre and Aris. And Aris, kind of, you have already explained that with your book. Perhaps I'll ask you to share once again the QR code so that people can check the presentation and then go into that, click in that book that you referenced. But so the question is, are there any educational sessions from the general public, be it from Interpol or national prosecution? And Vincent, you were just now talking a little bit about these, that typically it's more about like the organized crime or not, but have you ever done anything for the general public?
Yeah, we have had campaigns, more in the likes of prevention campaigns to raise the public awareness, but that's not really the core function of Interpol. Our core function is to serve our member countries and law enforcement in our member countries. So most of our documentation, training material, etc., would be on the restricted website of Interpol. If you look at the public website, you may find a few documents, but yeah, the most interesting stuff is obviously for the law enforcement in our member countries. We do have a global academy for law enforcement, and we sign partnerships with universities around the world. That's not my directorate, but the capacity building directorate. And that's somewhat related to the public to help also build curriculums in those universities on cybercrime, cryptocurrencies, etc.
Thank you. Alexandre, Aris, anything that you want to mention, and perhaps we can link it here in the chat and people can access it later on?
Okay, in terms of education, I will put that into two categories. One is for law enforcement and one is for general public. And for law enforcement, we do have regular sessions for training, and it will be a lot of them, especially in the police department. But we have a tricky question, a tricky problem just recently. Because what we had, the teachers or the trainers or mostly come from exchanges. So actually, I think about 3 months ago in May, we were going to hold a session in our office, and the teacher will be from Binance. But just a few days before the session started, Binance had a scandal. So that's a kind of tricky question, because we are teaching law enforcement to prevent cyber fraud, but actually sometimes the people we're asking or we're asking for education are from those might be relating to cyber fraud. So that will be a sometimes will keep us in a dilemma or awkward situation. Who are we seeking, or who are safe as our teacher? So that's number one question in the future. I think we can find some from TRM challenges, of course, but also we need some people from exchanges or even some even more private or smaller exchanges or related companies. And second is about the general public. And I would say it's very important for us to address this issue as early as possible, because I would say perhaps we can start from the college, because it's the time when people or when students are going to get involved or engaged in investing. Perhaps they have a little money from their parents or from their work, but they want to, to realize finance freedom as early as possible. So they are very, very vulnerable to those lure from those cryptocurrency products that we will say some of them are not illegal. So education for them is very, very obvious, important. And I would say perhaps in every country we need to address that question and make that as a perhaps a very solid course in the universities, and to teach those students that it's not safe, it's not quick, and it could be harmful if you are not taking this with a very cautious attitude. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aris. Alexandre, you have shared your screen, and I'll pass to the next question, and you can combine both. And so the final question for all of you to conclude this panel is this. So outside of the world of organized crime, or even inside, because on the other end of it, there's typically organized criminals. But for the average investor, for the average hobbyist in crypto, what are your tips as experienced professionals who have seen a lot of scams, a lot of fraud? What are the tips to protect ourselves?
Don't trust, verify. Maybe it's the most important thing. Double check, always check the same information from two different sources and independent sources, and invest time in knowing what constant vigilance. Yes, invest time in knowing what you are doing. Like if you put some amount that is very representative of your wealth, you have to understand what you are doing. And about the educational aspects, only in 2024 I have already administrated more than a dozen training sessions. Like third of them was open to the public in general. And we focused in law enforcement, not because we do not believe or we do not wish that the public in general know the information, but to the public in general, for the education of them, we already have a lot of virtual asset service providers that provide material of high quality and for free, like Binance, like CoinGecko, like CoinMarketCap. And for law enforcement, we do not have the information so well to be obtained. So no one can do it for us, because we here in the law enforcement, we have the knowledge of the empirical aspects. We are dealing with the investigations day by day. That's why we focus in law enforcement training sessions. But that guideline that I published and that I told there is the English version and Spanish version, it's open for the public in general also, because the first part of it deal with basic aspects like seed phrases and public and private key wallets and this kind of stuff.
Very solid advice indeed. Vincent?
Well, if it's too good to be true, then it's probably not true. That's my first advice. A lot of investment scams, I'm always surprised how people fall for it. Yes, I know the criminals will go to some extent in making you believe that they are your friends online and they have invested themselves and it is working, so join us in this Ponzi scheme. I'm always surprised how we humans can easily fall for those scams.
Yeah, the recent case of Omega Pro, that was international, very like
reputable.
a result of and a result of international cooperation. That was a perfect example of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is difficult for anyone, including us professionals, to tell apart the ones who are run by criminals. Sometimes those things just happen in between. You know, when they have enough treasury, they realize, fuck, we are sitting on so much money now. Can we just rug pull and go out with all this money? When they started with good intentions, but it's difficult to tell. But generally, if it is too good to be true, then it is not true. That's my advice.
That's solid advice. Aris, you previously mentioned the importance of deterrence and of this education from college and from school, the importance of this skepticism. Any other tip to add on the good remarks from Alexandre and Vincent?
Yeah, sure. For those, because from my experiences, I would see my victims would fall into two big parts. One is those who rarely use internet, and one would be who usually or so addicted to the internet. So I would say the first part is that might be those senior citizens, and they might have they have a Facebook but very few friends. But once they have somebody knocking, somebody want to friend them, they just will be so naive that accept everyone. So that's my warning is that don't even try to connect anyone that you don't know, even they appear to be very nice, they appear to be very handsome or attractive. Just shut it down and unfriend those. So because it could be a good person that you might be friendly with in the future, but because we're in a era in a time that scam that's so popular that everyone is so vulnerable and everyone can be gotten to. So my suggestion just to cut it and use as less social media as possible. Myself, I don't have Facebook. Myself, I don't have IG or anything like that. So what I'm encouraging, especially for young students, that because criminals are using AI to gather your information very quickly and to map out your friends, your family, and your lifestyle very quickly within seconds. So you can be a very good target if you are always hanging on those social media because a lot of information is being exposed. So next time, if you could shut it down for a couple of days or just to relate with your friends via email or even traditional phone call, I think that would prevent a lot of scams and to protect yourself and your family. Yes.
That's solid advice. Not only to avoid crypto scams, but also to live a healthier life, use less social media. Very well. Thank you, everyone, for the excellent quality of remarks here. Alexandre, Vincent, Aris, thank you for staying late in the office. I can see your nice robes behind you. And Alexandre, also quite early for you. And without further ado, it's time for the panel, and I'll pass the mic to Antonia, our host, to continue the great Crypto Tax Forum. Thank you, everyone, and see you on LinkedIn or not.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you for protecting us as human beings, as citizens. And yeah, I would love to have a webinar with everyone at the later stage because this topic is so thorough. So yeah, again, thank you so much. Have a nice day or have a nice evening. And now we're going to move to our next presentation.